So I'm going to show you first. We're going to talk about the back and the shoulders. So, obviously front, back here. Now the shoulders are built, it's a complicated area. It's the most difficult area in terms of the engineering, the design of any place on the body, because we're tree swingers. We got to swing from those trees. We got to bring that arm all the way up and move it, almost 270 degrees kind of thing. It has to be highly articulate. So that means the shoulder blade structure is actually not attached to the ribcage like the analog down with the sacrum is on the hips. It floats, it moves around there. So a complicated area. We're not going to talk about the movement of that. That's its own lecture some other time. But what I do want you to realize that if we're going to get the arms convincingly connected into the body, front or back, we have to show how the shoulders connect in a convincing way. And in front, we'll use the collarbones and the chest. And in back, we'll use the shoulder blades. And when we put those shoulder blades on, something very lovely happens for us. Now, to get structure, because we're working on flat canvas or flat painters if we're not sculptors, a flat canvas or flat paper. So structure is the movement over the form, And so let's hop over here. And what that means for us is whatever I draw, if I do this, you're just feeling a silhouette flat on the page, like a shadow. But as soon as I break the contour and show you how to move over the form, now you'll at least get the idea of form. And it will only be an idea if we're working in line. If we're working in tone, it can be the illusion of form. So if I did this well enough, and I won't take the time to do it well enough, you'll actually believe it. It'll sell it. So do that. And do that. Now, moving over the form then is critical. And we usually do that with construction lines in the beginning of a drawing. And as soon as we break the contour in the correct manner, you're going to feel the architecture of that structure and its position. It's closer to us at the bottom, closer at the top. It's leaning a little bit to the right, leaning to the left. It's facing to the right. No, it's maybe facing to the left, and so on. So we'll feel that architecture. Lovely. Shoulder blades help us do that if we can understand how. Because if we go back here, the shoulder blades, I'm on the right one. There's a delay, so it confuses me a little bit. The shoulder blades actually lay, and his arms are kind of back. He's pulled back like this. So it's not kind of the natural slight hunch. I'll show you a better sculpture in a second by Rodin. But the shoulders actually lay on a slight corner. Between the shoulders, spanning the spine, is the back, solid back. But when we tilt it down, let me get it up on the camera. When we tilt it down, we'll feel the shoulders that are going to a corner, and then the arms and the shoulder blades on the corner. Arms and the shoulders themselves, the deltoids, are on the sides. A little bit of a corner. If we get a more hunched view, like Rodin's lovely Eve, we'll feel this back spanning the spine, and then the corners, very chiseled corner, more rounded corner, but still corners, and then the shoulders and arms on the side. Back, corners. So when we do those shoulder blades correctly, we're actually giving you 3 planes to that back plane. It's going to help with our volume. It's a big deal. Here, it's dipping into the cavity of the spine. And then it's bumping up a little bit, just a little bit, bumping up a little bit for the shoulder blade being on top of that rib cage. Here's the rib cage and the muscles on it. Here's the spine going all the way down where there are no muscles on it. And here's the shoulder blade that's sitting on top of all of that. So it's a series of stair steps. Stepping off the shoulder blades onto the muscles of the rib cage, off the muscles that are on the rib cage, down to the canal, the cavity, the Grand Canyon of the spine, and then back up the other side of the rib cage, back up the other side on the shoulder blade. Real architecture going on. Notice how this drops into shadow here, relative shadow here. So let's draw this more articulating rib cage. Right here, you can see it here. And depending on how far this arm pulls back and pinches in, this shoulder blade can really crowd the spine. It can get way over here in the spine. If you try and scratch your back with both arms, it can crowd right up and you'll get this pinching corrugator skin bunching up like an accordion. Take all that out. So if you don't get this exactly right, where that spine is, I'm sorry, where the blade is right here, and I'm doing a little double or triple line to give the sense that it's on top. But you don't have to be super accurate there. If you're off a little bit, you can fix that later, or if you're off a little bit, you can ignore it, and oftentimes you don't have to fix it at all. And then it curls right here, that little two-side L that we talked about. That fits along the construction skinny neck, but still construction line. Make it straighter. And then we got the shrugging muscles on top. So notice construction line, shrugging muscles, and shoulder blade. Shoulder blade is the most ghosted out, all coming in there. Oh, I should be clear, all coming to that corner. Hang on just a second. And then the third side is lost under that armpit. In there. But if we pick that up, now look at all the subtle detail there, but try and ignore the detail and just look from here to here. And up here, there's more detail. So let's go down here. Notice how light the halftone is here. And then when we blade, notice this all gets darker. This halftone down here gets darker. So, and I'm going to exaggerate the corner. This is catching a lot of light. And then we get to the shoulder blade. And then here's the back without the cavity, the canal, the Grand Canyon of the spine. And then here's the other. You can see they're pretty equal because the arms are articulating in a similar manner. And they're close. They don't have to be exactly, and oftentimes they aren't exactly. Close to parallel to the spine. If you do a little double line, that gives us that step up. And then just like this drops into a corner, I've made it more severe, this drops into a corner. And notice this whole chunk from here to here, that's there's that little chunk of detail there. Here is the shoulder blade thickness stepping down. Here is the subtle curve of that. This is that big shadow above, dropping all of that shrugging muscle area. And here's some rhomboideus canal of the spine. And there's some other little things in there we don't care about, trapezius or getting in there. But notice how it's not showing up for some reason. That's okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. So there again is that architecture. Corner, step down, back. We'll ignore the step down for the spine. Step up. There's a step up. And then step down again. Corner, corner, like so. And notice how it's much lighter here, much more middle range in the back if we ignore the rises that get a little higher and the shadows that get much darker. And then this whole side drops into shadow. Comes down here. It's got the pinches. I'm going to minimize those. And then again, up in here, it drops into shadow or close enough to shadow that we can make it shadow. Just do that. Just do that. It's trailing off a little bit, but that's okay. So in effect, let me hold that in effect statement. We've got the back the corners, gone. Can't see the sides, let's pretend. 3 planes. So we could think of that rib cage as a tube, like so. Or we could think of it as a 3-sided box, 3-sided for as much as we see. The 2 corner planes and the 1 back plane, and then it would have a side, and we could do the same thing. And the chest does the same thing from the front side, the pecs. So we can make this rounded, or we could make it chiseled. Back plane stepping down, and then we can create that continuing stepping down of the architecture. We could also how this is catching light here. We could also show how the rib cage in a very real way. Could also be thought of as, we're going to talk about this kind of stuff next week. I shine this thing. We thought of it as a tube, we'd realize that it curves, or steps, it could be a chisel, but we'll just stick with the curves. Curves over, but also curves this way. So as it curves back in, it's going to get darker this way as it goes, turns over this way, but it's also going to get darker this way as it goes up out of light, because we have a low light source in this case. And that's why this is getting darker than this. So here is getting darker as it's rolling up out of light, up, going back into the environment that way. So you can see in a big way how all these tones track based on not just a little architecture of things, but the big structure that they're on. So that's the shoulder blades. They sit on corners. How are we doing on time? Oops. Rib cage sits underneath. Just do an egg this time. Bulges this way and bulges this way. And then the shoulder blades sit parallel to the spine. And they are what hold the arms onto the rib cage. If we, look at a arm that lifts up, it's the same idea that we had before, but now that shoulder blade's moved in ways we don't have time to describe. Now the shoulder blade's here. There's that depression as it steps down on. And since it's moved, hasn't moved that much, play that in real quick. There's that shoulder blade. It's pulling into rhomboideus muscles and rotator cuff muscles, some other stuff. So is this rolling back into space and getting darker up here, lighter down out here. And we can see that same stepping architecture. Oops. Stepping over, creating corners. And once again, if we look at the darker halftone or medium halftone, that's all medium halftone. This gets to be darker halftones as it fades into that skinny neck in the background. and then the shoulder blades pop out. And get lighter. And then the arm gets darker as it goes off light. But right in here, it gets lighter because it's a bit of a corner. Step, 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 like so. So watch for that. If we look on at it from the top, here's a head, there's a nose, there's the ears, there's the feet below. Here's the back, there's the front with the nipples, of course. Here's the back, right here, right here. Here's the corners, shoulder blades, right here, right here. Here's the deltoids, the shoulders with the arms, right here. And then you can see the shoulders come in, and then we step out for the chest or breast forms. And about at the nipple, we get a front plane. Nipple to nipple, we get a front plane again. Blade of shoulder blade to blade of the shoulder blade, we get a front plane again. So this beautiful symmetry from not just side to side, but a certain symmetry, not perfect symmetry, but a certain symmetry from back to front. All right, so let's stop there.